I'm only starting the recording so that we get we know it's started.
Yeah, what are we doing?
What are we doing? That's like a daily question I have. What am I doing?
Why am I here?
I haven't figured it out yet.
My whole life.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Not Your Father's Movies. I'm Vito.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jesse, and we are the Dad Fathers coming at you with some devilish energy.
That's perfect. Well, today, I'm glad you brought it up, though, because speaking of devils, today we're talking about Hellboy II, The Golden Army. And to discuss this is our second episode in our Outfits, Misfits, Outcasts series.
Loners.
And what?
And loners.
And loners.
And loners.
And I thought there was a B for other probably was like, and boners. I was like, what kind of podcast is this? It's like, maybe I felt wrong one.
Loners. Alone.
You have to enunciate, Mike. Enunciation. It's important.
Owners.
Gotcha. Perfect. Well, to help us talk about this, we are joined by a very special guest today. We're joined by David from Seriously Pointless Conversations About Culture. How are you, David?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you doing today?
Yeah.
We're doing good.
Yeah.
I'm doing good.
Yeah. I'm doing fine. Yeah. I'm a little tired.
Got my dad energy. I'm good.
Yeah. You're like, I'm alive. I'm good.
Yeah,
I have tired dad energy.
I'm super tired all the time, but hey, I'm great.
Exactly.
Living the dream.
Exactly.
I'm dreaming all the time. I'm so tired.
I know.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Oh, waking. Yeah.
The waking dream.
Yeah. Well, to help us talk about this movie, we brought on David because I think, is this your favorite character ever?
Yeah, so Hellboy is probably one of my favorite comic book characters of all time. I have a deep love of him. I picked him up a long time ago when I was significantly younger and better looking at the time. And maybe a little heavier, but it is what it is, Twinkies were my friend at the time. But anyway, so I love him to death. I the minute I met him on a comic rack, I fell in love, and that's just I love Hellboy, and like I said, so much so I've got some artwork hung up. I've got all of the stuff, all the comic books, all the trades. But yeah, it's one of the few things that my wife has let me keep from my transition from single to married life. So I'm gonna take it. So
you fought hard for that one. You're like,
I really did. And
this.
The reason she's like, that's what you want to keep. And I'm like, the way she looked, I'm like, she's going to give me this. I'm going to go with it. So
I love it. It's beautiful. So then like coming to the Hellboy character. So this is a strange one for us because this is the first time we've ever done a sequel that we've not done the original. And this is also kind of a nicher thing. Like it's quite a bit smaller than some of the other things that we've covered before. And I think that people might be a little surprised, our listeners, that we're doing this. But as we talked about in Jesse's birthday episode, we all did come to this movie, particularly Hellboy 2, with a lot of that nostalgia from our earlier days. David, would you like to tell us some of your nostalgia for this movie?
No, absolutely. So I had the wonderful fortune of actually going to see the first one in theaters with my dad, because it was just randomly. He was like, "Oh, let's go see that. You like comic books, you're a nerd." And I'm like, "Thanks, Dad. That's super great." I think he's secretly a closet nerd, but he just never wants to admit it. So, but he took me to this when I was probably 12. The first one when I was 12, and then whenever this one came out a few years later, I actually went on my own with my friends, and I just was enamored with the scale compared to the first movie, and how they did so much more with it. So it holds a special place in my heart. Obviously, I wish they could do a lot more than what they did, but like I said, it's just a special movie that I really want to show my kid whenever he gets older. So it'll be fun. I think to kind of show him this. My wife has said it's too violent already, but it is what it is.
My wife too. Yeah.
Yeah. All wives are like, that's too violent. It's not Sesame Street. He can't watch it. I'm like, hey.
My
What's
world
that?
my world has been drenched in violence and blood since the moment I came into it. Like
I know,
this
I was
movie just
I was
like
just like-
exemplifies it.
Much like Hellboy.
Much like Hellboy.
Much like Hellboy.
Exactly.
much like Hellboy and a
I
baby
actually had
Ruth
kind
the
of a
boot.
I had kind of a similar experience that Jesse in his birthday episode shared. I really wanted to share it there, but it was almost exactly the same thing, Jesse. My dad found Hellboy through the recommendations of one of his coworkers, who's a huge nerd from way back, like loving X-Men comics from like the 80s when he was a teen. And when he sees Hellboy, he's like, "This is really special." And my dad's name is Mike. He says, "Mike, you got to watch this." And my dad's like, "Okay, I like superhero things, I like comic book stuff." And he watched it. He says he was just blown away by like the redemptive arc of a demon that didn't want to be a demon. And he immediately showed it to me. And I was a teenager, and we really kind of bonded over this weirdo thing that most people didn't talk about. And I didn't know anyone that had ever seen it. Even going to college, it was like I didn't know anyone that saw this. And I remember when Hellboy 2 comes out in theaters, we were just so excited to see it. And that's one of the few times where we both had an equal love for the same like IP and the same reason for that love, which is that Hellboy 2 is such a unique and strong character. And the movies are so wacky and bizarre. And I had a deep connection with him with that. What about you, Mike? What's your...
Yeah, I actually didn't see Hellboy 2 until about a month ago when we were recording Jesse's birthday episode. So I had absolutely no relationship to Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, but I had seen the first Hellboy years before. I didn't go and see it in theaters, but I saw it. One of my good buddies at the time, Henry.
Henry.
Yeah, Henry. You guys know Henry.
I
Henry.
know.
Henry, yeah, Henry, yeah.
Henry, David. He's awesome,
Henry.
dude. He and his family like had this really strong connection to Hellboy before the movies came out or anything. I guess his dad had read the comics or something. I'm not totally clear on that, but he was so excited to show it to my group of little 14-year-old friends when it came out. And so I remember going over to his house and seeing it at the time. And I hadn't seen it since until today. And I was thinking back, I was like, you know what, man? Like, I actually do have this connection to Hellboy, and I went back and watched it. It was a fun ride. I realized though, like it was fun. I had actually fallen asleep for about 20 minutes towards the end. The movie's about 20 minutes too long.
To be
So I
fair,
fell asleep
you're a
while-
dad. That's totally acceptable.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Yeah.
this is when I was 14.
Oh, when you were 14.
When I was 14.
Oh,
yeah,
that's when you're teenagers. That's acceptable too.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know how, but it was like it was. I don't know. I got this sense. It was between. Basically the movie's 20. The first Hellboy is 20 minutes too long. I thought, because in my memory of it, it was a perfect movie. I was like, this is so cool. And it had come out around the time like another friend of mine was playing like Return to Castle Wolfenstein.
Oh yeah.
That had come out a few years before.
Yeah.
I like these like zombie Nazis and like these weird
The occult.
and the occult and
Oh, dude.
all this stuff was going
That's
on.
it, right up my
Oh,
alley.
and cyborgs.
Yeah. Exactly. So it was fun to sort of revisit that world again, because that was a cool world to grow up in a little bit.
Yeah.
What about you, Jesse? I
Yeah,
mean, we've talked about it a bit, but
I did. I think there was a whole episode partially dedicated to that on the birthday episode, where my dad unexpectedly showed it to me. It was an unexpected dad movie for us to bond over, and because it was so funny. No exposure to Hellboy prior to that, like absolutely nothing. I had no idea who this guy was. Other than that, it was like a superhero movie. But it was so much fun. This is such a fun world to be a part of, and it's this weird blend of CGI and everybody dressed in costumes the whole time to make it feel both fake and a little more corny, but yet more real than most CGI films that we see nowadays. So it still holds up in my book. But yeah, so that was
Absolutely.
like 10 plus years ago. 10 plus years ago, we watched that. And then I hadn't seen it till last month for the previous episode. And I loved it. I was laughing so hard. And it was like juxtaposed to me, like showing this to my wife and somebody else that had come over, and like they or had never seen it. They were like, "This is the corniest, cheesiest thing ever." I'm like, just let me have fun. This is fun. You guys should be having fun too. Like, because this movie is it is cheesy, but it's so much fun and so funny. I love it. I love the humor. I love the idea of a demon wanting to get better. Who has a plot like that? That is so great.
Yeah, it's I love that sort of that invitation that the movie kind of offers you with that opening. It's like, in this year there was a secret operation in Scotland, and then this guy came out. He loves TV and candy, and it's an invitation. The movie is saying, like, come with us. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be real weird. The next thing you're going to see is a kid. And he's in demon makeup. He's got horns, and he's brushing his teeth. All right,
Them big old buck teeth.
Oh, they're huge. They're huge.
They're amazing.
I know, they're literally like
Yeah.
half his mouth, and I'm like,
I know.
you know what?
It's freaky.
It is.
That's the
looks like a
scariest part
beaver
of this
almost.
demon. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a child. When he's an adult, you're just like, okay, you look a little knobby. But when you're a kid, you're like, whoa, jeez.
Yeah, all right.
Dude, I love how that opening sequence ends with them asking if the Golden Army exists, and then the title comes up. It's like Hellboy 2, The Golden Army. It's like, well, I don't think it's going to be a mystery the rest of the movie. You just let us know what this whole movie is going to be about. That's great.
No,
I love it.
they get halfway through the movie. They're like, no, that was a red herring. It's all about like vampires or something random. And there's like, I'm like, son of a bitch, come on, man.
Wesley Snipes shows up. He's wearing a black trench coat.
Yeah, you ready to kill some
This movie
vampires?
took a turn.
It's like, just like sprinklers with the blood just kicks on out of nowhere, and I'm like, this got really dark really fast.
John Constantine walked into view. Anyway, okay.
Yes,
But sort of like,
crazy trade.
I would love that. I want Blade and Constantine in a movie. Pretty please.
I would be down with that. Absolutely, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. But sort of getting into the movie, David, you want to tell us a little bit about this character, where he's from, what brings him to this juncture here in this movie?
Sure. So, Hellboy is actually a creation of Mike Mignola, who is a comic artist and writer that initially started with DC and Marvel Comics, and eventually moved off into Dark Horse whenever he came up with this idea back in '93, I think it was whenever he first appeared in comics. So the whole concept is that Hellboy is the son of a demon and a witch that basically gets transported to our reality and ends up getting raised by Professor Broomholt, which you briefly see him in the beginning of this one. On spoilers, he got killed in the last movie, guys. Sorry. But he gets raised by Professor Broomholt, who's actually in charge of the BPRD. And through the whole story, the whole comic series, you kind of meet the different cast of characters, which in the movie, Liz Sherman, Abe Sapien, Roger the Homunculus. I don't think you actually meet him in any of the movies, but he's a really cool kind of character that they totally gloss over, which made me super mad later on. But you meet Jonah Kraus and all these other Victor Manning, the curmudgeonly old new director later on. But you meet all these new characters throughout the series as Hellboy kind of develops himself and learns about his back history, because initially, when he comes to this earth, he doesn't know anything about himself. And so he kind of learns throughout the whole thing that he is basically the bringer of the apocalypse, the bringer of Ragnarok is what they call him. And he is just constantly poked at, from multiple angles, from different people throughout his, comics, story arcs that said, you're going to bring about the end of the world. You're going to bring the end of the world. And he's just like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna go do something else. I'm gonna do my own thing. He kind of gives him the middle finger and just says, piss off kind of thing. But he does kind of, in a way, don't know, without spoiling too much, of the whole comic series, he does kind of, in a way, he does kind of bring about Ragnarok, but he's kind of does it in his own way, which is really an interesting thing. I don't know if you guys have read the comics or not, but he does end up doing that in his own way. And it's actually really satisfying the way Mignola does it. But the really interesting thing about the comic series is that Mignola has Hellboy visit all these different mythologies that there are throughout the world. I mean, he goes from like Native American, Egyptian, Sumerian, Irish, even, which is where he actually ends up grounding this movie in. Which, fun fact, I don't know if Vito, I don't know if you read the Sound and Fury volume that I sent you or not. But have you read that yet? It's where that's where it. I think that's where you can see the similarities now.
Very much so.
It's you find out that he really kind of the Irish mythology is like a huge part of this movie, and it's a huge part of the Hellboy legacy, and like how he kind of becomes the person or the character that Mignola wants him to be. And I got some little tidbits later on about why you kind of have these juxtapositions in there, but it's really fun. So, but yeah, if you guys kind of like dark, gritty humor with gorgeous art by multiple artists, I would highly suggest going out and just picking it up and just taking it a read, because like I said, this is a master class in storytelling, in my opinion. So, but yeah.
I'll loan you a copy.
I don't think I really like storytelling that's good personally. So I don't know.
Yeah. Storytelling bad.
Good
punching
good art.
Punching good.
That could be a whole other podcast. It would have the most toxic fan base. But kind of taking the reins from you and talking about Hellboy 2. So I love that you bring in that mythology, because in researching this movie, and then in our prior conversation on your podcast, which we'll talk about a little bit later, there's a lot about where Mignola was at in his career, and he's starting to ground Hellboy in different places, like you're saying, and then where Del Toro is trying to crack this sequel idea because he's not really sure how to, and they both kind of decide to make a newer thing that could be in this movie, even though it has the ties to that role. And Del Toro really has he's at the time, he was still kind of an up and comer a little bit. You know, he really hadn't hit the mainstream yet. Like, he hadn't really done, he wasn't Shape of Water guy yet. So it was kind of one of those things, it's like he was just kind of the flavor of the week kind of guy, like, oh, he's the monster movie guy. That's what everyone kind of thought of him, Yeah,
so
it's actually
it was really kind of
like Pan's Labyrinth that this movie comes out.
My wife, talk about a match made in heaven. I love Del Toro, and I love that dark kind of vibe. And it's in Spanish too. My wife is a Spanish teacher. It was boom. Cool. Yeah, my wife is like, let's watch this. She's like, this is so sad. She's like, but it's just in Spanish, and I will watch it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to take it and run. So. But I mean, what's not freakier than? Yeah, I say, what's not freakier than a thing that has its eyeballs in its hands and it has to like go after? I'm like, ugh.
The Pale Man. Oh, he's amazing. And
yeah,
we will be doing Pan's Labyrinth.
Super creepy.
Oh yeah, love that movie.
Yeah, we'll be doing it. But so this one, it's directed, produced, and written by Guillermo del Toro. We know him as the guy, as you were saying, he's kind of an up-and-comer for a long time with Kronos, Mimic. He does Blade 2, get some recognition, and Hellboy, but it's not until Pan's Labyrinth that he really sorts of breaks onto the scene. And after that, it's been Del Toro all day and all night for everything. If there's a movie that has a vague fantastical element, he's like, attached to direct is Guillermo del Toro. You're like, well, there's 15 movies he's attached to direct. He's not doing that. I promise you. But he usually walks away with like an executive producing credit or writing credit, or even like a weird creative consultant credit. But he wins the Best Picture and Best Director for Shape of Water, the Academy Awards, and was nominated for Pan's Labyrinth for writing and also Best Foreign Language Film. He's constantly on everything. As I said, he's credited as a writer in all 3 Hobbit movies.
What?
Which he was supposed to direct, but he had to step away due to financial difficulties with MGM at the time.
Yeah.
He's executive produced 2 Kung Fu Panda movies, also Puss in Boots, Rise of the Guardians, Pacific Rim 2, because he did the original.
Puss in Boots. I know, right?
And he works, like, if you want to look up his television IMDb, it's obnoxious how much stuff he has. Like, he's just churning out animated shows for Netflix, like 3 a year.
The man is a workaholic. He really is,
for sure.
And I can't. I said I don't mind it at all. So.
More Del all the time. But he's also he has a surprising creative consultant credit on Edge of Tomorrow, Megamind, and Beautiful, Inarritu's really sad movie with Bardem.
Yeah.
Creative consultant Del Toro. There you go.
Literally, he was probably like stepped in the room, was like, "You should do this," and then like walked out, and they're like, "Consulting credit." It's like
Exactly.
That's probably all he did. But I love that. That's how the business works, and it's like, okay, cool.
Well, it's because he's such good friends with Cuarón and with Iñárritu. They're the three amigos of Hollywood, and so you'll find that they intersect with each other's movies a ton. Like both of them helped him with Pan's Labyrinth a lot, and they really support each other. I think that's really fun.
That is cool.
Even though those two are like wildly different from Del Toro's interests.
Yeah.
He's the strange like dark horse in there for sure.
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten bored and looked at? He did a video tour of his house one time.
Mm-hmm.
That man is like super into horror films, and it's like busts and like full size like Frankenstein monsters. It's cool. I honestly wish I had the money to make a house look like that.
He specifically has 2 houses to house his memorabilia and his books. It's insane. He's like, why have dreams?
Yeah.
2 houses.
You're like, I have an apartment.
That's what he's.
I have a studio apartment. Is that okay?
And he talks about how like he has like a room for monsters, and he has a room for like just Victorian literature, and he has another room that he's constructed. I think he said there's a room where it like rains 24/7.
What?
Because it's a dream he always had as a kid. Yeah,
that's kind of awesome.
It is.
He's like good. He's
just
making
a huge
his dreams
baby.
come true.
He's a huge little kid. Like that's all he is.
To be fair, if I was single and have a family to take care of, that's probably what I would have been doing too. So it's just like hey,
they all live in
priorities.
His family all lives in.
Are they all in the monster room or in the rain room?
No, they don't live there. No one lives there. They live in Guadalajara.
So he's got two houses.
They live in a dungeon.
Exactly, in Mexico. Yeah. No, they live down there because I believe he divorced his wife a few years ago, but he still goes every 6 weeks back home to see them. But he also has these other. He's a wild guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, going forward, he's also really known though for working with the same people constantly. Like Ron Perlman has been with him on 9 projects, including his 2 new ones. And it's funny, like looking over Ron Perlman's sort of filmography. If you don't know him from Sons of Anarchy, like as Clay, then you can just kind of throw a dart and you'll find a movie that you've seen that he's in. And you'll always recognize him because he's huge and has a face that's like the size of a mountain. He has a real Easter Island head.
Yeah. Well, he looks like Hellboy.
He does.
To be fair, I prefer his adaptation where he played the Beast in Beauty and the Beast. Have you seen that?
The TV show? I watched some clips.
Yeah. It's pretty bad looking, but it's really cool. It's like him in his early career, and it's fun to watch like people like that and they're in their early career because they're literally just going for anything. And I'm like, you could kind of see him, but when he starts talking, I'm like, oh, that's Perlman to a T because you cannot fake that voice at all.
No, it's beautiful. It's gravelly. Selma Blair is in this. You probably know her from Cruel Intentions, Legally Blonde, and also she was just in American Crime Story playing Kris Jenner for a season. She was really, really good in it. And she has kind of stepped away from it. She is in some things. She mostly shows up in TV shows because of her MS, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured.
Yeah, but she's great as Kris Jenner. She's unrecognizable almost as Kris Jenner, so that's kind of cool.
Cool.
And then another guy I want to mention is Doug Jones. We got to talk about Doug Jones.
Oh yeah,
man of many faces.
Every face. 3 faces in this movie.
Monster Man.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's known because he's so tall and stretchy and bendy and thin in every single ligament.
I said the man, he probably looks like he weighs 140 pounds and he's probably like 6'5", and I'm like,
exactly.
Oh, like how?
Exactly.
Crazy.
I think his fingers are each as long as like tall as my head.
That's terrifying.
Well, he is.
He's terrifying.
That's his thing.
He's terrifying.
And he doesn't mind being buried underneath a lot of makeup or CGI, and he's a very physical actor. But he's worked with Del Toro 7 times, including in Pan's Labyrinth, where he is the pale man with the eyes in his hands. He's the pale man, yeah. He's also Silver Surfer in Fantastic Four.
Oh.
He's on the What We Do in the Shadows TV show, which is really funny.
Yeah.
And then in this one,
great show.
In this one, he's in 3. He's Abe Sapien, he's the Chamberlain, and he's the Angel of Death.
Which is so freaking cool.
Yeah.
The Angel of Death is awesome.
It's just Del Toro again, putting eyes in weird spots.
Yep.
Got some eyes up on these wings.
Why not? Why not?
It's clarifying, like, what makes me freak out the most. Eyes in weird places.
Yes.
eyes in weird places is terrifying.
I don't
or
like it.
mouths.
Eyes
in
or
weird-
mouths, yeah. Eyes or mouths, yeah. Yeah. All right. And then obviously Seth MacFarlane here. Got to mention him. Everyone knows Seth MacFarlane. I'm not even going to read his credits because he's great in this. Yeah, exactly. But I want to mention the cinematography here is also from a frequent collaborator. Worked with him 6 times, Guillermo Navarro. But he's a big Mexican guy. He has his Mexican dudes like Robert Rodriguez. He's worked with a bunch of times. He's done From Dusk Till Dawn, Desperado, Jackie Brown. But then he's also having a really fun career now where he's doing stuff like Night at the Museum. You're like, good for you, dude. Buy a house, you know? And kind of last on my list of people who worked on this, it's interesting that this is Danny Elfman and who does the music. And it's so kind of strange hearing an Elfman score on anything that's not Tim Burton, especially when he's doing his Tim Burton thing in a Guillermo del Toro movie. Like just that opening when it shows all the clockwork pieces locking together and it's like bum 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 bum.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I think it works. I think it sets a great tone.
I think so. Anyway, that's all kind of I had for people who worked on this. I'm wondering if we want to maybe go around the horn and do some favorite scenes to get us into this movie.
Yep.
Let's see. As our guest, David, do you got a favorite scene?
Okay, so I'm going to take probably the most obvious one for me, maybe in the whole movie, is the troll market scene. Just for the simple fact is I'm a huge proponent of practical effects, and from what I've gathered and what I've read is that entire set they built from scratch, and they tried to do as little CGI on that thing as possible. And it was just watching them, the whole setup to it. You're thinking it's going to be grungy and dingy, like when they first meet the little troll gal. And of course that she's just so gross and everything like that. And he scares her. Yeah. And then they end up going to the troll market, and it opens up a whole world of all these different creatures. Like you have no idea what they belong to. And Del Toro is never going to tell you what they belong to or where they're from, but you're just like, what is that? What is that? And then you kind of like,
why does he have
walk through and you see this.
Why does he have a baby?
What is it? But I'm not a baby. I'm a tumor. And you're just like, oh, I love that. It's so gross, and he just like hugs him, and I just love that he's like he does like puts these weird creatures and doing things that are normal, like getting a shave. It's just like, okay, that's just bizarre. But then like as they move along through it, you just see that he goes and he meets the map maker or the banker, whatever that guy is. And it's just everything is just so bizarre and so wonderfully and gorgeously handcrafted in that Del Toro, specific way. And that's probably one of my most favorite scenes. And then, of course, I got that big culmination where he ends up fighting. I believe what's the big troll's name? Is it Mr. Tick? I believe his name is.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name
Wick,
exactly.
Wick,
but the big troll,
Wink.
Mr. Wick. That's what it was. Wink, Mr. Wink. That's what it was. And he ends up fighting him, and obviously he gets thrown into the meat grinder, so to speak. So, yeah, at the very end, and he just like lets him. He has like a mock interrogation with him a little bit, and I'm like, okay, but it's that's probably one of my favorite scenes. Yeah. But yeah, that's I love that scene to death, and I could watch it 100 times over, and I both find something new every single time I watch it. So
awesome. What do you think, Mike?
My favorite scene, this movie is just full of fantastic scenes in general, but I think that my favorite one of them all is probably, what I'm gonna do when Prince Nuada, like the scene where he comes in and kills his father, like that is just such a cool scene. When he's fighting all the elves right at the beginning.
Yeah,
they're
like triangle heads.
Yeah, and
they're like triangle head wannabes.
Yes, exactly.
they're in this like a furnace room somewhere, and you get the sense of like the elves have fallen so far from where they were, and Prince Nuada is like he's so angry because it's been thousands of years of just living in hiding, and he wants to take control and take power and bring back beauty to the world, but he ends up killing his father to achieve his ambitions. And the way he fights, like it's really cool sort of sword play. He chops off their heads.
Yeah.
And there's the great reveal that Nuada and his sister Nuana,
Nuala.
are somehow connected. And it's just such a cool scene. Like you walk in and there's this, it's almost like snow or leaves, but it's ash that's falling all over everyone. It's filmed in such a beautiful way. It's like golden colors, the way that you kind of expect to see elves, but it's in this like different sort of world where it's
twisted.
Like, it's twisted.
Overshadowed by like the industrial kind of world, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really
because
cool.
he's got the furnace behind the king, right? And I love that.
And when he does kill his father turns into like, I don't know, some sort of ivory, like image of himself that can break. It's almost wood, but it's also almost stone.
It looks kind of like wax a little bit too.
Yeah,
but it shatters.
It's able to shatter. Yeah. It's really cool. It's a really cool scene.
What do you got, Jesse?
Yeah, that's great. I have a couple, but I think my most favorite scene and the scene that got me and my dad into the movie is just the intro. And not the intro when he's a little kid with the giant teeth, but the one that comes after that. It's like, it's the headquarters, right? And Manning, he comes up to Abe and it's just like, all right, we got to talk. And he's showing him all these pictures of Hellboy. And it's just like, what is he doing? He's trying to hurt me, right? And he's like, no. Abe's like, no, he's not. And then he starts asking like how him and Liz are. And while they're having this conversation and he's popping meds and talking about how stressed he is, there's all the aliens in the background that they're doing operations on. It's so funny because, like, when do you
People
expect...
are dying.
Yeah, people are dying. Like, this is a top secret organization for fictional creatures, and it's amazing that this all exists. And here they are having this stupid, petty conversation about how stressed out he is, and how Hellboy hates him. The devil hates him, and that's what's upsetting him right now. That's so funny.
I love when they walk past that one monster, and he goes, "What's that?" And Abe says, "Oh, it's Friday." And they just like keep walking.
Like, is it named Friday, or like you say, "Oh, okay," and they don't even like talk about it. They just like keep walking.
Yeah, exactly. Just like, oh, but that's what happens on Fridays, or its name is Friday. Either way, it's not concerning. It's throwing security guards around, but who cares?
Probably dead.
Man, I love it as like. I love the fact that that's a thing, that it's Friday and you can sort of believe it, but it's really funny. I love how it's like a thought out world, but it's making fun of itself as it's going along. That is so great. And that's what like hooked me into this movie when I first saw it. And then of course the intro to Hellboy, when like he gets thrown out of a door and the door like almost kills him. It's just like, oh, hey Abe.
She's mad.
She's mad. It's so great. I love it. How about you, Vito?
I was really happy that no one picked it. My favorite scene is the Tooth Fairy scene. That is. I love that. I know it's very on brand for me to like that, but the line.
When I said I had two favorite scenes, that was my second, and I didn't say it because I knew you were going to pick it.
I'm glad I've become so well known to my co-hosts. I'm sure it's with only affection and not mockery. I demand to see your guys' private group chat that I'm not a part of. I demand to see.
Never. I'll never reveal.
Leak the emails.
You mean, that would just be text messages.
I need to see them.
That's just ordinary text messages.
Are you a boomer? Are you secretly a boomer?
No. Shut up.
Fun fact, there was not a text message chain, but now there will be.
Hey, I'm texting Jess right now. Hey, do you think Vito is secretly a boomer?
No. Look, we brought this up in the last one.
Do you think we could take over the podcast without Vito anymore?
This guy sucks. I'm gonna take Mike down with me though. He's in the same room. All right.
Yeah, he can't hit you guys. He can try to beat me. He can't beat me out.
I'll just kill you. It's fine.
Mike, has he done this often? Has he started hitting you recently?
No, but my favorite scene is the Tooth Fairy scene because of the line, "There are no corpses because there are no leftovers." And they look down and it's just goo all over the floor.
It's like 3 inches of goo.
It's so disgusting.
It's all the people that you already saw in liquefied.
Hellboy's just like, oh crap, and then Abe's like, exactly.
Exactly.
I'm like, what?
Abe thinks he's like wow, Hellboy, that's very smart of him. He's like, no, I'm just it's a terrible situation I'm in.
Expletive. It's an expletive.
But that's actually something that I have a lot in common with my dad. My dad loves these creature features where the effects are super practical, and they really they find something unique and scary or gross to do. And this one, to take the idea of a tooth fairy, number one, brilliant. Number two, make it a weird, crazy, rabid crab flying creature. Number three, have it attack teeth specifically is so deeply upsetting. And every time they attack, there's the sound of like the high-pitched whine of a dentist drill. It like gets you on edge, and just watching as poor hapless red shirts like fall from side to side as they get like demolished by these little fairies. I love it. And every time Hellboy fires his huge ass gun, the whole camera frame like shakes as if it's impacting the filming itself. No, I think it's brilliant. I think it's really, really wonderful. It's my favorite scene. It's also, I think, my favorite action scene in the whole thing. It's very inspired.
And also there's the Babe line. And the Babe, when he's like on the radio, is just like, same story here, Babe. Liz is like, don't call me Babe. It's like, I said Abe. He switches the channel. It's just
she's still mad at me.
Same channel.
That's such a guy thing to do too. It's like we're so like just oblivious to shit. It's just like, yeah. It's kind of like when I mumble something under my breath, and my wife's like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "Oh, Jesus Christ!" It's like I wish you did that.
You got the ears of a fruit bat, okay?
Hearing it. How the hell? Like, you yell at me and I don't hear it. I'm like, what the heck? This is bullshit.
Yeah, I said one slightly critical thing across the house, and now you're mad at me. Great.
Yeah, I'm downstairs in my basement, and somehow she hears me while it's sleeping, and she wakes up and she's like pissed at me the entire day, and I'm like, I don't know how you heard that. Subliminal, like learning or sleeping. I don't know.
That's happened. That's very much happened. I'm whispering, so she won't hear it for another few weeks.
I know. Funny story. My wife had like a pissed off. She got mad at me in her dream probably about 2 months back, and she was just pissed at me the entire time. I'm like, what did I do? What did I do? And she's just like, nothing. And she finally told me, and she's like, you did something in the dream. I'm like, that wasn't me.
That's amazing.
Why are you mad at me? But
your perception of me is super negative, and I hate it.
I was like, I'm sorry for something I never did. That's very deep. Anyways, so yeah, that's the whole vibe I got from that conversation. I love that conversation between Abe and Hellboy and Liz. It's phenomenal. Yeah,
and it sets up that dynamic so well, and it really gets you into like who these people are and what we can expect from them. And I kind of want to ask. So the obvious one, who's like the big character, is clearly Hellboy. But in his supporting cast, do you guys have a favorite? Do you have a favorite like bad guy or side guy? Like, is there any love on this pod, I'm asking, for the weird troll who's half a body and the other half is a cart? Is that anyone's favorite character?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
that's what I was.
He's a great character.
I was going to say he's my favorite amongst a lot of like ones that I like. He's hilarious.
I love that guy.
He's so great.
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that it's like his workbench and his body.
Yeah,
I think that'd be really helpful. Just like going about your day, being like, well, let me just reach all the way back here. Oh, I found a hammer. That's good. All right.
Yeah. No, I was thinking the same thing when I saw it. I was like, if I had a disability like that, I would want to turn it into a workbench.
Yep.
Yeah. There you go.
He's a great forger.
Yeah.
Little did you know that he was actually in the great troll explosion of 2010. And now he's just handicapped, and you're making fun. I like your cute little workbench, and he's just like, "This is my wheelchair."
I'm saying it's a good wheelchair. That's what I'm saying.
It's on purpose, man. It's okay.
Way to turn your disability into an extra ability.
That's a great shovel you have there. Just keep digging.
Here I go. What I do every day. Down I go. See you guys.
You'll pop out the other side. All right. How about you, David? Who's your favorite like runner-up character?
So I have a special place in my heart for Abe, because in this they kind of give him a little bit more of a I don't know, flamboyant tendency to it. So like talking about like the troll market thing, like when they pull out the hats, he's like, oh, it's got cute little straps. And I'm like, where did that come from? And I just I just love Doug Jones to a T because he just plays him exactly how I have him in my brain. Like when I read the comics, that's the kind of guy I see him being. Like he's very intelligent because like he's just kind of like quarantined himself away from everybody, but he just knocks it out of the park. I love Doug Jones as Abe Sapien. Yeah,
Awesome.
Yeah,
How about you, Jesse?
Abe is great. I really like Johann Kraus. He's so great when he comes. He's so bizarre. Like I'm not when you first see him, and especially never having been exposed to him before. I wasn't sure what the rules associated with him are, and the more you get to know the rules, the less I understand them. Because then it's like I guess you're in the suit, but you don't need to be. You can take control of anything around. You can even talk without the suit on.
So if you want to go down a rabbit hole, check him out in the comics. Mike Mignola does some weird shit with him in the comics. Like he just like goes off into his own little world, and like after like whatever Mignola's like, I'm gonna get rid of him. He just kind of like floats off into like some weird dimension thing, goes on like a journey, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing with this guy? Like, it's pretty cool. I did not get I like the tone they went with Kraus this time. They made him a little bit more obviously German, a little bit more kind of funny, I guess, a little bit more funny, I guess. Because in the comics he's like super straight, and like he definitely plays like the straight man as opposed to like Hellboy, who kind of just like lets everything slide off of him. So I think that this is one of the few character like exchanges from comics to movie that I loved to death. So plus Seth MacFarlane, I mean, seriously, come on, great voice.
Oh yeah,
He's got a great voice.
Oh, he's so great, and I love how they brought like the Dwight dynamic to him, just because I guess he's German.
Who put my stapler in Jello?
Yeah, if this was The Office, then Johann Kraus would be the Dwight in The Office.
Yeah,
and that's his function here. Everybody's kind of making fun of him, but he's so efficient and good that they can't completely. And he's just so obsessed with the rules. Yeah, he brings a great dynamic to the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree. I was a big fan of all three ones you guys mentioned. And I got to say, though, I think coming out of this, my favorite guy is Prince Nawala. I really like this guy. I'm identifying with the villain yet again.
Surprise, surprise. This is like Vito's just all over the map. Didn't expect any of these things today.
I love this guy because I've never seen this guy like again.
Yeah,
this actor Luke Goss.
Yeah,
he's in a couple other Del Toro things, but he never rose to any heights. And it's funny that Prince Nawala is here because the way he's playing this character, he's like in a radically different movie.
Yeah,
like
man.
a radically.
Yeah.
He is not doing the same thing anyone else is doing, and I think you need him for that because you need this sort of incredibly sincere, very humorless bad guy to sort of offset everyone else being laughy jokey. But he plays it so straight and so sincerely, and he really believes in everything he says and does. And I really respect that. It's a good villain. It's kind of like, it reminded me a little bit of Killmonger from Black Panther. Like you can almost see how what he's saying makes sense. You can almost see it. And just the methods he's going about it are just the worst way to do it.
All the words that he says are beautiful.
Yeah.
Like he says, we've lost the beauty of the world. Like, look at us. We're in this furnace, like we're doing. And the way he talks to Hellboy, like, you're not part of this. Like, are you really going to kill this creature, the last of its kind?
Yep.
With the big plant creature thing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, man, that's deep shit.
And when they kill him, it's super sad.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I see why you made that choice, but that really sucks that happened.
Yeah. That was a weird scene.
Yeah.
That's a weird scene.
Very strange.
It feels very Del Toro, though, right? He's like, I'm creating this huge, monstrous thing that will hurt people, but if you just respected it and leave it alone, it'll be fine.
Except it won't. You have to kill it, and then it becomes more beautiful.
It can in its death, but could it have been more beautiful when it lived and like could cultivate things? You don't know.
You don't know. Yeah, that's true. It's a weird
I think
scene.
right time, right place. It could have been a lot better for that. I guess you'd call him not an earth elemental, a plant elemental, maybe. That's a better term for it. But like, if you think it was like an earlier age where there wasn't in the middle of an urban center, I think it would probably be fine where it was. It'd probably leave people in. But if I was an earth or plant elemental shoved in the middle of like bricks and mortar and stuff, I'd probably be pissed off too. I'm like, because I want to. I guess that's what they all want. It's kind of like dryads. They want to keep the forest going, right? So That's kind of how I took it as. So
Yeah, it's like if you stuck an Ent from Lord of the Rings in the middle of Manhattan, like that just wouldn't go well.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's why they went after Isengard, right? And took that.
Yeah. So everyone, here we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to say, surprise, surprise, it's Lord of the Rings pod, baby.
Here we go.
All right, let's go. I'm ready. I'm already ready.
If you were a hobbit, which would you be?
Exactly. Yeah.
Hellboy. Surprise! This is still Hellboy episode.
Hellboy the Hobbit.
Oh, this is great.
So, Mike, I see that you got a bunch of notes here to get us back on track.
Oh,
you got a bunch of these notes. Do you want to talk about these notes? You seem like you've sectioned things off into several categories that we had not discussed doing. So I'm interested.
I was just getting ready for anything you threw at me.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I was trying to be ready here. I kind of this is a very. If you could see the screen, you'd also be confused. I'm also confused about it. I made it. To be clear, it's just kind of like threw stuff up on a OneNote thing, and I like OneNote. OneNote's a great.
OneNote's great.
You can kind of just like click wherever you want. But one of the things that I was wondering was which fight you guys like the best. And we kind of touched that. Like David, you said your favorite scene is the fight with Wink, pretty much.
Wink, yeah.
But I mean, like. I guess we kind of hit on that, but there were a couple of ones that I thought were really cool.
Yeah.
Like this is a movie about fights.
There's a ton of fights.
Yeah. It's great. Like this is my favorite sort of superhero. It's like all the superheroes. They deal with their problems.
He's good at.
Yeah. He punches. Yeah. He's good at the punching and the shooting. Yeah.
That's right.
Doesn't do a lot of kicking, but a lot of punching and shooting with his red right hand.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think one that I really, really enjoyed is, so I did like the one. So the great thing about Del Toro is the way that he always dresses every scene to the nines, every single one. Yeah. There's no moment in a Del Toro film where he did not pay attention to this and make something really beautiful or really interesting, find some way of cloaking it in something. Like that fight between the elves, it has so many things going on, but it's this intersection of the leaves and this industrial like thing, this furnace behind him. And it's kind of like in the end fight. I mean, of course, we know Del Toro is obsessed with gears and clockworks and steampunk stuff. But then at that end fight between the Golden Army, they're just clockworks and just gears.
Yeah.
And it's really fun the way how colorful everything is. Like it almost hurts your eyes sometimes. You're watching on like a really high resolution TV. There's all this color and splashy like shapes flying everywhere. I really love that fight. I'm not as big a fan of the final fight with Nuada. I guess there's too many cuts for me.
Yeah, it's a lot of quick cuts, and it kind of it does kind of wear on my eyes too. I'll agree with you on that one. I like the first couple fights that Hellboy has, and I like when they're not. Do they ever really fight before with each other? I'm trying to remember. Other than. I don't think they do.
They do. He gets stabbed. In the library. I totally forgot about that. That's
a great scene, by the way. Amazing scene.
The one prior to that.
Without you.
Yes. That is such a good one because it's like when Mike came in and I had the movie on and we were talking about Red and Blue sitting down to talk, and Blue is like feeling love and feeling heartbreak, and is like, I don't understand what to do with this.
I've just been tear ducts.
Yeah. I've just been listening to these sad songs over and over, and it flashed me back when Mike walked in the room of all the times that, for instance, Mike and I have done that in the past, or times when Jesse and I have done that in the past, or times when all three of us have. Just so many times of listening to sad, depressing songs about and thinking about girls that we should not really be thinking about. And I was like, this is like an essential like dad experience that you go through this and get kind of drunk and listen to sad songs with your guy.
I wouldn't trade him for the world.
Yeah,
I guess.
I never did it with Can't Smile Without You though.
I know we missed out.
Yeah, that's a big regret of mine.
To be fair, I'm not a Barry Manilow fan, so it's okay. It works great for this movie. It's just not a Barry Manilow fan, but I am a Takate fan. Takate. I don't know how the hell you say that beard, but I love that beard. Takate. Okay, wow.
Takate. Yeah,
I should know that. But
it's okay.
I can say Cervezas. That's all I need to know. So.
Exactly. How about you, Jesse? You got a favorite fight?
I mean, I think you guys took a lot of the good ones, but I have to agree with you, Vito. Just the ending Clockwork fight. That, like, it's funny having not seen the movie in years and then seeing it after 10 plus years, and that's a fight scene I remembered the most clearly. Like, they're smashing them, and there's this ray of hope because you think that they're going to be done. You think that they're going to win, and you're like, okay, it's a lot of them, but they can do it. They're clearly like kicking some butt, and then they all reassemble, and you're like, oh no, they're truly doomed. Yeah, that's great. I love it, and also it's so much fun. This is I watched half of Hellboy on my not 4K TV, and then my birthday came around. My wife gave me the 4K TV, so then I watched the second half on 4K TV, and that fight is so much better.
Jesse, I've got a question for you. Do you have a 4K TV?
No, I have a 4K TV. And then
he has a 4K TV. I didn't know that.
He's got a 4K TV.
I got a 4K TV.
So
I was watching it on my 4K TV. Yeah. and it's just colors and lights and smashing things. It was so much fun. I was so happy that I got to watch it on my 4K TV.
Yeah. I can't wait to make these jokes again when we all get 8K TVs. That'll be really fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, it'll be great.
Yeah. Just never ends. I love that.
So many Ks.
So many Ks.
In my eyes.
So I wanted to ask though, I was trying to I was going through this and I was trying to pick out like themes to the movie. Like what is this movie kind of generally about? It feels like there's a lot of messy themes with it. It's kind of a messy movie.
Hey, Jesse. Hey, bud.
Yeah.
Mike's talking about themes again. Could you guess
imagine that? It's the most fun superhero movie ever, and we're here talking about themes. Let's do it.
No, I thought that was part of the fun of it, though.
We love you
because
Mike, for not being a story guy, you're really digging into some stories. I'm just saying.
It's only because I hate them so much. I want to know how to hate them best. You know,
it's acceptable. It's acceptable. Continue, sir.
You're like Mark Wahlberg and the other guys who learned to do ballet ironically, so he can make fun of it.
Yeah, man. Exactly. If you really hate something, you have to really work hard to learn it.
Well, tell us what you.
No. But so I don't know. I guess like I was watching it again and. There's the scene with the plant elemental, and there's this weird line. Like Prince Nuada shows up and he's talking to Hellboy and he's trying to convert Hellboy to his side, and he says, and it's kind of like the crux of his argument is like, if you cannot command, then you must obey. And then Hellboy ends up having to shoot the plant elemental, which was kind of weird to me because that. I don't know. I guess that's a part of the plot. It's just, I guess it opened up the plot to me. It opened up sort of the theme of just kind of, I don't know, the general sort of coming of age story that this is in a way.
Yeah.
But it's a different sort of coming of age story from what you expect out of any coming of age story, and especially a superhero one.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an origin story. It's not like someone learning about their powers. It's him going from being like, I'm kind of a wild youth to being, I'm going to have twins.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's like fighting against authority. I don't know. I wanted to know if you guys had thoughts.
So kind of jumping off that a little bit, I'm gonna take point on this because I thought about this quite a bit. So it's one of the few things I thought they did a disservice to comparing the comics to the movie. So they do this really well in the comics. Whenever they have Roger, who's a homunculus that they find, and they end up putting him on the team. And at the time, without spoiling a whole bunch of it, they end up inserting, they're like, well, we make a battery for Roger because he needs a battery to run off of to keep going. Well, they put like a bomb inside of his chest, and they basically give Hellboy the dead man switch to like say, hey, if he turns bad, you're in charge of killing him. And so he's kind of like, that's the same. And so that comic is the same moment in his development as that part is, like what you're talking about, the plant elemental. He basically gets the idea, the choice of, do I buck authority if he doesn't listen, or like I basically have to choose between right and wrong, like, and do I grow as a person, or to just go along with everything they tell me? And he ends up basically giving the middle finger, and that's when he kind of leaves the BPRD after that storyline. And that's the one thing I wish they would have done that in this. I think it would have been a great scene.
He doesn't end up blowing up the homunculus. He
does not.
Yeah.
He basically says, "Screw you guys. This is bullshit." And the whole team actually a lot of the team ends up leaving with him, which is kind of where he was writing this about the same time that they were writing the script for this. Yeah. And so you can kind of see, like I said, the parallels to it. And it's a great like scene that they kind of put in there. But I just really wish they would have done something like that in this, because it's, as opposed to being a creature that is fighting, it's one of his friends, essentially, like, because he's getting to know like Roger, and he's starting to trust Roger in the comics. But in this, I mean, obviously you feel bad for the plant elemental, but I mean, he's known it for all of 15 seconds, it's like, and he's trying to keep people safe in the city. So man, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it's a little bit of a disconnect for me. But I get it. It's a time constraint thing, but
yeah. But Guillermo del Toro, in like some of the earlier notes, said that he had been working on some shorts to try and figure out how to make Roger the Homunculus work, and I guess he just had a really hard time cracking that visually.
I can see that,
and like sort of running it through the Guillermo del Toro like art style, because he and Mike Mignola, they have similar kind of tastes, but Mike Mignola is so much, as we talked about it in our episode, in our conversation, David, like he's a very minimalist, right? He uses big empty spaces in his pages, and Del Toro is like, no, everything in every corner all the time. All right.
So much so, like the way he draws Roger, it's literally a naked person with a metal like container, like a metal, like, what would you call it, loincloth over his crotch with like a hook on it. And I'm like, I don't think that would fly in a movie, but you could try. It's a little BDSM, a little bit.
Yeah, it gives off a weirder vibe here. Yeah.
Just a little.
I mean, I guess we do have like the suggestion of the incestuous relationship between Nuada and Nuala.
A little bit, but
it's not too far.
There's adult themes.
There's adult themes.
It's okay. Del Toro's like, people kind of like this, and he just went full tilt in Crimson Peak instead. So he's like, we're just going to put this all in there.
Not a fan of Crimson Peak. Not a fan of Crimson Peak. No. I don't want that. Okay. So I guess trying to tie this into our series as a whole, we're talking about these misfits, these outcasts, and Hellboy fits this in a couple of different ways. Most obviously, he's a demon. That already separates him from the majority
in
of
a
things.
human world, to be
clear.
In a human world.
Although
there's also like elves there and other creatures.
Exactly.
But most of the people around are humans.
Yeah, so there is no other demons on screen with him at all. Yeah. And even more than that, even more than being an outcast there, he's working for a bureau full of outcasts whose job it is to round up these outcasts in their world. And even more than that, he is the chosen one to bring the apocalypse forward. He is Anungan Rama. He is, as far as I could see, this is actually like one of the first movie I thought of when thinking about an Outcast Misfit series, because he fits everything. His very identity is that he is an outcast. He's a loner.
And he doesn't fit.
He doesn't fit anywhere. Totally. The only way he fits is when he grows his horns and takes the crown and rules.
And even then, it's great you bring that up. Like even then, in the comics, like all the other like lords of hell, like simply despise him so much. So like if you guys read any of the later stuff in the comics, they actually, like, the moment of his conception, which is in hell, they actually, all the other lords had actually stormed his father's castle, and they were about to kill him, which is the point where he gets transported to Earth. So that's how much they hate him. Like, they wanted to kill him and cut his hand off so they could have it for themselves, because that's how much power he has. Yeah. So it's, like I said, nobody wants him. Everybody wants to use him. And so he's like you said, just, it's the epitome of like an outcast, of like nobody really wants to be his friend, essentially, until he meets all these other outcasts, right? And then he finds out, the world's not so bad. It's actually a pretty nice place. There's
There's pancakes.
There's beer and Baby Ruths and all kinds of other fun things. Kitty cats,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna eat the cat. We gotta stop it. He's gonna eat the cat.
I like how his main driver in this movie though is like he is an outcast, he is a misfit. He's kind of where he belongs to some degree, like in this with this agency with all the other outcasts, but he doesn't want to be there. He wants to be out in the world. He wants to exist just with ordinary people. And that's all he wants. He just wants to not be the outcast, not the misfit anymore. And obviously he can't. And we all know that. And that's probably why he's so immature and that's the key thing he needs to grow away from. Yeah. It's kind of it's a deeper story if you think about it that way. And it's really sad. It's a good thing they made this movie funny, because if it wasn't funny, it would just be a really, really sad movie.
Super, super depressing and dark. Yeah. It's kind of how the comics are a little bit. And luckily, like you said, Del Toro and Mignola have that very similar kind of like humor, and they definitely pick it up. Like you said, that point is like from when he leaves the BPRD. It's just him. I mean, it's literally like all the comics are him kind of like trying to find himself, and it's interposed by like weird little funny things. And I'm like, thank God this is in here, because this can kind of get really depressing sometimes. You know, it's like people just constantly trying to shove stuff in his face and things like that, and him trying to get him to do what they want. And he's just like, I'm gonna sit here and just drink rum with these skeletons, you know, and the cards. And I'm like, this is hilarious. I love this. So yeah, it's little things like that. So.
Yeah,
it makes me really sad that we're not seeing the third one, because there's so much, like, having watched this one a couple times recently, he's actually doing some very subtle seeding for the future story. There's the bit where Abe, which does two things, where Abe puts on the goggles for the first time and looks up at Hellboy saying, "Those don't work," and he switches the one down, and then you see Hellboy in his full demonic form. And they don't comment. Yeah, he doesn't say anything. Yeah. And it tells you two things. One, that they work. And two, that Hellboy is always like holding this identity. And then what you were talking about, Mike, with Prince Nawada talking about you have to command or obey. That is actually like, that is his core issue for his whole life. His whole entire character arc in the comics and what was supposed to be in the movies was that, do I bring about the apocalypse? Do I get my destiny, or do I forge my own? Yeah. And like what David was saying, he does like eventually find a way to reconcile those in a way. But it's sad every time I watch Hellboy 2, because it really does feel like a Cracker Jack second chapter. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't
have the conclusion.
It doesn't. Like, it concludes well as a movie. Yeah. But the characters aren't finished.
It's definitely a springboard for the characters. It's basically saying like, hey, there's gonna be that final arc, you know, that you're gonna have there that kind of tied some of these things up, and they're just kind of left dangling there a little bit. And it's a little sad and depressing to know that they didn't really ever finish that. But at the same time, you know, they could come back in some sort of manner, possibly. I think maybe animated.
I know you're holding out hope. David.
I really am, because you get a little few of those things. But I think the problem is, I think Mike Mignola has kind of, ever since he finalized the Hellboy series, and he really doesn't do anything to do, like, he won't do anything with the main series anymore. He's capped it. He's done with it. He does like Hellboy and the BPRD stuff now. But it's like the Hellboy BPRD 1965 or 67 or whatever it is, and he'll have it that one little story, one little snippet of his timeline. It's nothing after because to be fair, I mean, he does bring about the end of the world in the final chapter of stuff, but like I said, he kind of like puts he's capstoned it, you know, he can't go any further with it. So I think he's kind of put it up on the shelf a little bit, and I don't know if we'll ever get to see it, unfortunately, but I still hold out hope. I really do. So, because everybody that I've taught, you read stuff online and you hear that, you know, Selma Blair, Ron Perlman, Doug Jones, Del Toro, they're all for it. They would love to come back and do something, because they love these characters, because they know they had so much fun working with Del Toro and Mignola. So, but I kind of hope I hope they do.
And in a lot of ways, you can see why too, because I was trying to pull for those three, you know, trying to pull other things that you would know, but really, this is it. Like, this is the biggest profile that I think really all of them had. because these characters are so linked to them, their faces, their performances, but also like Ron Perlman. Who do you know Ron Perlman from? Well, he's Hellboy. Or, you know, maybe
Sons of
if you
Anarchy.
watch Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
I never watched Sons of Anarchy.
A ton of people watch Sons of Anarchy. That's what everybody
I'm
knows
sure.
from.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, I never did,
yeah.
but I remember showing this to a couple guys at work. We were on a snow day, and it was like we couldn't go anywhere, so we sat down, we started watching it, and then they're like, "Is that the dude from Sons of Anarchy?" And I was just like, "I guess," I'm like, because I've never seen it, you know.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's him," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, you know, that's where you get him from." But you know, those are the two main things I think he's been in. I mean, but he's been on a lot of like little things recently, like TV shows and some little movies.
He's in huge movies all the time, especially like Del Toro. But it's always like, all right, you got a monocle and you got a hook hand, all right, and be scary over there. Or like in Drive, like be a mobster that gets drowned in the waves, like.
Yeah.
But thinking about somebody like Doug Jones, you know, he doesn't show his face very often. He likes being buried. And it's just like him and Del Toro. He's like, you want me to be a fish guy? I'll be a fish guy. I'll do it for you twice. I'll do it for you 3 times. Okay. Or like,
right.
Yeah. I mean, he is Abe Sapien in The Shape of Water. It should have said Abe Sapien, The Shape of Water. That's what the poster should have been.
The Shape of Water, Abe Sapien?
Yes, he is the
Abe
Shape of Water.
Sapien story.
Yes. That's
Oh,
better.
there
The
you
Abe
go.
Sapien story. Then it can go right to Hallmark.
Yep.
All right. So I guess we're gonna wrap up unless anyone has anything additional.
Well, I feel bad we haven't heard anything about seriously pointless conversations about culture. I mean, we might have just had one.
So,
yeah.
No, go ahead. Yeah, obviously, go ahead. You're fine.
You go.
Okay, so I will go. I'm getting lots of fingers pointed towards me. So kind of like Vito said, guys, we have our own podcast, Seriously Pointless Conversations about Culture. We do a lot of similar things to these guys here over at Not Your Father's Movies podcast that really just we love to do. It's primarily like video games, anime, books, movies, things like that. We're very eclectic, you know, like kind of like you guys. Ian. So I have multiple people on multiple times, you know, just to try different things. Like usually with my wife, we end up talking about like books and some video games, some older stuff. With my buddy, it's a lot of anime because he's a huge weeb, and and we also do lots of video games with me because I've got a little bit of ADD, so pretty much it's the only thing that like holds my attention for any span of time. So it's fun. So yeah, we do about a podcast a week, which it actually might be changing here a little bit because I got to go back to school. So it's it's time constraints, but we will still be cranking them out as much as possible. But yeah, it's every week, and you can catch us over on Seriously Pointless Convo, on Seriously Pointless Conversations about Culture on Facebook, Instagram, all those fun places. And you can reach us over at seriouslypointlessconvo@gmail.com for your questions or concerns. But yeah, we actually did a Hellboy episode with Vito a while ago.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's hopefully it'll come out at the same time as this one. So that's what I'm hoping. So
Absolutely, definitely. And I just wanted to share just a couple of like things. I'm a regular listener. I was on the show. I listened to a couple episodes, came on your show, and since then I've been downloading every week and listening to them when it's something that I either know or something I think I'm going to get to know because you're going to tell me about it. So a couple episodes I really enjoyed though. I love that conversation you had with Jackie about Final Fantasy VII. Fantastic.
I can't take credit for that because that was all her. That was one of her childhood babies right there. I'm pretty sure that raised her for about 2 years of her life. So,
it's something that like that game, especially when I saw that pop up on my feed, I was like, they did it. They're finally going to do it. They're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII because that's the very first video game I remember playing. And I remember watching my cousin, because I wasn't very good. I'm like 5. I'm watching my cousin play it. He's way better at it than I was. So he'd let me do the chocobo racing and then let me like wander around the world. And then he would do all the fights. But I remember when Eris dies, that was so shocking to me. It like broke me a little bit because she dies on the screen. And I said, well, she's going to be fine. And he goes, no. I said, no, but like they come back. He goes, no, she's dead.
They always come back. No, not this time. Yeah, that's like I was telling Jackie. That's one of the best scenes in that because I started replaying it. It's just they made it significant, right?
Yeah.
And so you're kind of like, you're a little part of you is like, I don't know if I want to keep playing this if they're gonna like start killing people off, especially and then bringing them back. But yeah, it's a great scene, and then they, like I said, that's why it really stands the test of time as one of the best JRPGs, if not one of the best RPGs ever made, honestly, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, and definitely for our listeners, if you're interested in any of that, there's also a Scott Pilgrim versus the World episode that's very, very fun. Yeah, go check them out. We'll definitely be sharing all those links in our show notes. And we're friends with David here on Facebook. You can see us interacting all the time. So find our Hellboy episode there and listen to his show.
Yeah, you can look at all my really badly worded memes that I throw out on there constantly. 90% of them are for my wife, though. So
we feel the passion. The passion is there.
That's it. I appreciate it. So
we're so grateful that you came on our podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, yeah, thanks for coming.
I'm so glad to have you guys, or come out and talk with you guys, because like I said, it's fun to share the passion, especially about something that you love so much with other guys. So I'm pretty sure, or people in general. So
absolutely,
yeah, awesome. Well, final question then. We always ask: Is this a dad's movie? I say yes. I say yes.
Wholeheartedly.
100%. Yeah.
Wholeheartedly yes over here as well. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta agree. This is, this is one of the more unique superhero movies. I always enjoy watching it.
Yeah. This is definitely up there with like I'm gonna want to show this one and the Christopher one that comes on some of the Christopher Reeve Superman stuff to my kid, because I love those. So those are my two that I want to show him first. I've already got him hooked on Star Wars, so I'm going down the path. So
this is the way.
Yeah.
This is the way.
And then just a quick question, and then let's sort of when. So you're already answering. You're saying, David, ASAP, as soon as Jackie is like, you know what, it's okay, it's not that violent, that's when it's going to happen.
It's ASPPs, as soon as parentally possible. So that's exactly what I'll be doing. As soon as she's able to let me, I'm already kind of like I'll be like, yeah. She's like, do you want to watch Sesame Street with him? I'm like, sure, we'll watch Sesame Street. We'll go watch a movie downstairs. And she comes out and she's like, why are you watching another Star Wars movie? And I'm like, Sesame Street was only half an hour long,
and there's puppets in Star Wars. There's puppets. Come on,
I guarantee you, I can find a Star Wars puppet parody online. I'm sure it's 10 times lower budget, but I'm sure it should be fine, whatever. She's pretty much given up all resolve on preventing our child from seeing movies before he's a certain age at this point, I think. So
awesome. How about you, Jesse? Win?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't settled on the superhero violence and when to show it to my kids. But whenever they can handle that, I'll show them this movie. I have no idea when that's going to be. Probably 10-ish.
Yeah. I'm feeling somewhere around in there. I love these dark gothic things. I remember the first horror movie I ever saw was Beetlejuice, and I was sitting in my grandmother's room watching it on her TV, and I think I was 6. And I was terrified.
A little traumatizing, to say the least.
Yeah.
It was, and it haunted my nightmares, but it also made me obsessed with that gothic kind of horror that still persists to this day. And I don't want to do that to my daughter. She's a very sweet kid. She loves life. She's very happy. And I don't want to turn her into a hot topic.
You gotta crush that early. You gotta crush those dreams early.
So we'll do Bambi, and then we'll do Hellboy. That's how it's going to be.
That's right.
One night.
You do Bambi, and then do reindeer games, just immediately, one after the other.
Reindeer games? Oh my gosh! When's the last time I heard that?
I don't know. I just pulled it out of my butt. I'm sorry. I'm just I don't know what this is. Maybe it's violent. So I just repeat them. Hey, it's our brains work in mysterious ways, right?
Yeah, that or what's the other one? What's the Christmas horror one where Santa's a killer?
Oh, I don't know this.
Black Christmas, is that it?
It's probably Santa Claus with a K or some crap like that.
Claus.
If that doesn't exist, we need to copyright that immediately.
Yeah. I think it does. I think it does exist. I think Claus is
KLAWS. Seriously,
it's scratched.
Yeah.
Or you could watch the Krampus one. That's always creepy.
Yeah,
Krampus is great.
That's the one.
Krampus is great. I love Krampus.
That was great.
Yeah. How about you, Mike? What age?
Maybe like I want them to, before they see the Hellboy movies, I want them to have like an idea of superheroes, because this is a twist on the superhero for sure. It's weird, it's dark, and it's like got its feet in so many, well, a few different like genres. So I want them to have like some sort of working, I don't know, familiarity with it, so that it doesn't just totally shock them when they see the blood and gore from the tooth fairies, or just the tooth fairies in general. I don't want them to be terrified at night when they go to bed with the, and I say like, you know, like when they're losing their teeth, I don't want them to just like have nightmares.
Oh, it's perfect. Yeah. Well, no,
Yeah.
it's good. They're
So I
losing.
don't know, maybe like 12. I don't know.
Feed the fairies so they stay away.
Wow, we have completely different like parental objectives. I want to traumatize my children as much as possible.
Make them funny, man. Make them funny.
I know, like a little part of me. So I was watching TikTok that I know it's horrible, and I know I'm a millennial. But anyways, I was watching the video where like the people hide under the bed and they grab their feet. I'm like, that's a great idea. I think I want to do that to my kid when they get older. My wife, I told Jackie about that, and she's like, I will hunt you down. I will kill you and bury your body where no one will find you. And I'm just like, okay, not never doing that. Got it.
Awesome. Well, we're so happy to have you on, David, and it's been a blast. We can't wait to have you again. And yeah, we'll make sure we link to that in the show notes. You can check us out, notyourfathersmovies@gmail.com. Find us at our website, nyfmovies.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and wherever you find it. If you find it somewhere, please comment on it. Please talk to us. We want to talk to you. And I think that does it for us. I'm Vito.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm David.
See ya.